There's a dangerous lie that almost everyone believes, that you need to avoid pain in order to live well. But what if I told you it's exactly the opposite? Did the most dangerous men in history, those who built real power, not run from pain? Did they train their minds to endure it? While most break down under pressure, there is a silent group that does something different. They don't ask for life to be easier. They become stronger than any situation. And this has nothing to do with motivation. It has nothing to do with pretty phrases or positive thinking. It has to do with something much colder, much more strategic, much more realistic. Niccolo Machiavelli already understood this centuries ago. The world doesn't reward those who feel the most. It rewards those who know how to play the game best. And here is the point that few have the courage to accept. Life will test you. It will push you. It will break you. Emotionally, financially, mentally. The question is not whether this will happen. The question is, will you fall apart, or will you rebuild yourself more dangerously? Because there is a method, silent, invisible, but absurdly effective. And when you understand this method, you stop reacting like a victim and begins to operate like someone who will never again be easily shaken. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He needs to understand something that almost no one dares to face. Most people don't want to evolve. They just want to stop feeling pain. And that's where the problem begins. While the weak mind chases immediate comfort, distractions, quick pleasures, easy validation, the strong mind does the opposite. It seeks control. Not control over the world, but over itself. It's the kind of thinking that Niccolo Machiavelli described when talking about decisions based on real human nature, not on beautiful ideals. Pain in this game is not the enemy, it's raw material. But look, most people prefer to anesthetize, social media for hours, food without hunger, empty relationships, anything that silences the discomfort. But the price of this is high. Each of these escapes weakens the ability to face reality. And here comes a silent principle. Whoever flees from pain flees from power. Because power is born precisely at the point where most people give up. He realizes that while some seek relief, others build advantage. And this difference over time becomes an abyss. Now, observe this in practice. Imagine two simple scenarios. A man arrives home tired after a difficult day. In the first scenario, he throws himself on the sofa, opens his cell phone, and spends hours scrolling through content. Cheap dopamine, mind switched off, problem ignored. In the second scenario, he sits in silence, faces what he's feeling, and asks himself, "What is this trying to teach me?" It may seem small, but that's where the change begins. It is in this type of choice that virtù and fortuna are built, not as luck, but as preparation in the face of chaos. The first man alleviates the pain, but remains weak. The second uses pain as a tool. And here's something practical. Reducing easy stimuli is already a brutal start. Spending 30 minutes a day without a cell phone, without distractions, just thinking. It seems simple, but few manage it. Reading something that strengthens the mind, like Think and Grow Rich, for example, also changes the game. Not because the book itself works miracles, but because it teaches you to stop reacting like a victim. Gradually, he begins to realize that emotional control isn't a talent, it's practice. And then an even more uncomfortable point arises. He realizes that many of his choices were never truly his own. They were automatic, conditioned, impulsive responses. The weak mind reacts. The strong mind chooses. And this difference defines everything. When someone internalizes this, they begin to abandon the constant need for comfort. They no longer need to run from pain. They observe it, understand it, and use it. This is the calculated use of strength applied to one's own mind. It's not about becoming cold or insensitive, but about ceasing to be a slave to emotions. And here's the detail that almost no one talks about. This process is silent. There's no applause, no external validation. It's internal, almost invisible, but extremely powerful. Because when he begins to control his reactions, he realizes that there is something even more dangerous sabotaging his evolution. Not the pain itself, but the way he reacts emotionally to it. He begins to realize something that completely changes the game. It's not the emotion that destroys. It's the lack of control over it. Most people believe that feeling intensely is the problem, but that's a comfortable illusion. The real problem is being governed by what you feel. And here comes one of the coldest and most real ideas that Niccolo Machiavelli ever implied. Decisions based on real human nature require emotional detachment. Those who react impulsively lose. Those who observe before acting dominate. While many live as hostages to anger, anxiety, insecurity, or the need for approval, the strategist learns to break the emotion before it breaks him. And that doesn't mean ignoring what he feels. It means not handing the steering wheel over to it. Because in the end, emotion without direction becomes sabotage, and repeated sabotage becomes destiny. Now, think about how many bad decisions stem from an emotional moment. A message sent impulsively, an argument that escalates unnecessarily, a choice made out of fear or neediness. That's exactly where you lose an advantage. Uncontrolled emotions transform small situations into major losses. A trained individual does something different. They create space between the stimulus and the response. It seems simple, but it's one of the rarest skills that exist, and it can be trained practically. For example, before responding to any emotional situation, criticism, provocation, frustration, they impose a silent rule on themselves. Wait. It could be 10 seconds, 1 minute, 10 minutes, but they don't react in the heat of the moment. This changes everything. Another powerful practice is writing down what you're feeling before acting. Putting it on paper removes the emotional charge and transforms it into something analyzable. Little by little, they begin to understand patterns, what irritates them, what destabilizes them, where their triggers are, and that's where the real power comes in, knowing your own weaknesses before someone uses them against you. But there's an even more strategic point to all of this. When he stops reacting emotionally, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. Most people are easy to read. Just press the right button and they explode, retreat, or expose themselves. But when someone develops emotional discipline, that pattern breaks. He no longer gives away his reaction for free. This creates a silent advantage in any environment, social, professional, even family. It's the famous better to be feared than loved, not in the literal sense, but in the respect that comes from stability. People don't know exactly how he's going to react, and that changes how they behave around him. This is where the appearance of virtue begins to become a strategy. He can demonstrate calm, control, and balance, even when he's processing chaos internally. And, in the midst of this process, an inevitable question arises. If he no longer reacts as before, then who is he really now? Because controlling emotion isn't just about behavior, It's about identity, and this leads directly to the next point, the story he tells about himself. At some point, he realizes something uncomfortable. It's not what happened to him that defines his life. It's the story he tells about it. And here's the silent blow. Most people live trapped in a narrative they never consciously chose. I am this way because of my childhood. I didn't have opportunities. I was always left out. It seems harmless, but it builds an entire identity based on limitation. And as Niccolo Machiavelli already said, decisions based on real human nature require clarity about what is fact and what is interpretation. The fact is what happened. The interpretation is the story he created to survive it. But the problem is that this story, which once protected him, now imprisons him. Because every time he repeats this narrative, he reinforces the role of victim. And victims don't build power. Victims wait. And those who wait get left behind. Now observe this coldly. Two people go through the same situation: rejection, failure, loss. One says, "This proves I'm not good enough." The other says, "This showed me exactly where I need to improve." The event was the same, the impact completely different. And here comes a powerful, almost surgical practice, rewriting your own story on paper. He takes a significant episode, something that still hurts today, and writes two versions. The first, how he always told this story. The second, how a strategist would tell it. Without exaggerated emotion, without drama, just analysis. What did this teach? Where was the mistake? What could have been done differently? This completely changes the perception. Little by little, he stops seeing himself as someone who was harmed, and begins to see himself as someone who was trained by reality. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals, applied to one's own life. It's not pretty, it's not comfortable, but it's extremely effective. And then something even deeper happens. When he changes the narrative, he changes his behavior. And when he changes his behavior, he changes the outcome. But here's the detail that few realize. This requires detachment, because often the victim identity brings hidden benefits: attention, justification for inaction, even a certain emotional comfort zone. Letting go of that hurts. It's like abandoning a version of himself that, although limited, was familiar. But that's the price of growth. He begins to understand that the end justifies the means. Not in a distorted moral sense, but in the strategic sense of doing what needs to be done internally to evolve. And the more he rewrites his narrative, the more he realizes he's still attached to something more subtle, not just the story, but the things and people that sustain this old version of himself. And then an inevitable need arises, to cut the attachment, to finally regain control. He begins to realize something that deeply bothers him. What controls his life most isn't situations, it's attachments. Attachment to people, to results, to validation, to expectations. And here lies the brutal paradox. The more he needs something, the less power he has. Because need generates dependence, and dependence generates vulnerability. And as was already implicit in the ideas of Niccolo Machiavelli, whoever wants to maintain control needs to avoid being dominated, including emotionally. Most people don't suffer because they can't achieve something. They suffer because they believe they need it to feel complete. And this becomes an invisible prison. He begins to understand that it's not about not caring about anything. It's about not being controlled by anything. This is the true calculated use of force, not against others, but against one's own impulses of attachment. Now let's bring this to practical reality. How many times does someone accept less than they deserve simply out of fear of losing something? A bad relationship, a toxic environment, an unbalanced friendship, all sustained by attachment. And the most dangerous, attachment to validation. The constant need to be recognized, approved, accepted. This destroys any possibility of inner power, because whoever needs the approval of others automatically surrenders their center of control. So they begin to make small strategic cuts. They reduce the need for immediate answers. They stop justifying their decisions all the time. They learn to say no without guilt, and most importantly, they begin to expose themselves to the discomfort of not being understood. This hurts at first, a lot, but it strengthens them. A simple but powerful exercise. Spend a period without seeking external validation. Post something without constantly checking the reaction. Make decisions without announcing them to anyone. Little by little, they realize they don't need applause to exist, and this completely changes how they position themselves in the world. And then comes the silent turning point. When he lets go of attachment, he gains freedom, and freedom generates power, because now he no longer negotiates based on the fear of losing, but based on what makes sense. This changes everything. In relationships, in decisions, in the way he moves. He begins to develop something rare, inner stability. He's no longer so easily pulled emotionally. He no longer gives himself away for crumbs. He no longer needs to chase after people all the time. And this creates a different presence, firmer, quieter, harder to manipulate. It's the principle of avoiding being hated, but also not becoming dependent on being loved. A strategic balance, but this process has an inevitable side effect. As he detaches himself, he begins to distance himself. And this distancing often leads to a place that few know how to use well, isolation. And it is precisely there that something even more powerful begins to be built. At some point, he realizes the silence is growing. Fewer messages, fewer invitations, fewer distractions. And at first, this is unsettling because we've been conditioned to believe that being alone is a sign of loss. But here's the inversion that few dare to accept. Isolation, when used intentionally, is not abandonment. It's construction. While most people flee from their own company, he begins to use it as a tool. And this is deeply aligned with the logic of Machiavelli. Decisions based on real human nature require moments of detachment to see clearly. In the midst of noise, no one thinks. In silence, everything is revealed. It is there that he begins to perceive patterns, errors, repetitions. Things that previously went unnoticed now become evident. And this, however uncomfortable it may be, is extremely powerful. But there's an important detail. Isolation isn't about hiding from the world. It's about preparing for it. Many people confuse this and end up withdrawing out of fear, not strategy. But strategic isolation has a purpose. It creates routines, structure, discipline. It involves investing time in things that strengthen you, reading, physical training, mental development. It could be waking up earlier to have moments of clarity before the chaos of the day. It could be training alone, without an audience, focusing on the process. It could be studying topics that increase your decision-making capacity. Finance, psychology, human behavior, books like The 48 Laws of Power, or even Machiavelli's own writings begin to make more sense in this state. Because now you're not just consuming, you're absorbing. You're connecting with your own reality. And little by little, this time alone ceases to be uncomfortable and becomes necessary. And then something changes almost imperceptibly. He begins to enjoy the silence. He begins to value his own company. He no longer needs to be surrounded all the time to feel valid, and this creates an inner strength that is difficult to explain, a kind of stability that doesn't depend on anything external. It's as if he were building his own loyal armies, but within his own mind. But here's the most important point. This isolation begins to refine how he perceives pain, because without distractions, without escape, Everything becomes clearer, and it is at this moment that he understands that pain is not something to be avoided, but something to be interpreted. And when he begins to do that, pain ceases to be a burden and begins to become precision. He no longer tries to run from the pain. That's in the past. Now he's starting to do something much rarer. He interprets, because he understands that pain isn't just suffering, it's information. Every frustration, every mistake, every rejection carries data. But most people ignore this because they're too busy feeling. And here's the turning point. While some dramatize, he analyzes. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals, applied to his own life. And in a cold, almost strategic way, he begins to look at pain as a report. What went wrong? Where was there a failure? What can be adjusted? Without victimhood, without inflated emotional narratives, just facts, just data. This is exactly the kind of mentality that Niccolo Machiavelli would value. Decisions based on real human nature, not on what should be, but on what is. Because in the end, those who transform pain into learning create an advantage. Those who transform pain into drama remain trapped. Now let's bring this to a practical level. Imagine someone who was rejected for an important opportunity, a job, a project, even a relationship. The common reaction: frustration, doubt, a drop in self-esteem. But the strategist does things differently. They deconstruct the situation. They analyze what was under their control: communication, preparation, posture, timing. They identify patterns. Perhaps they realize they weren't prepared enough, or that they let emotion interfere, or that it simply wasn't the right environment. And here comes an extremely powerful exercise: recording mistakes and lessons learned, creating a strategic diary where each failure becomes an insight. This completely changes the game, because instead of repeating mistakes automatically, they begin to evolve consciously. Another point: seek real feedback, not praise. Ask directly, where can I improve? This requires courage, because the answer might hurt the ego, but it strengthens the result. And results don't negotiate with ego. And then he begins to operate on another level. Pain no longer disorganizes, it refines. Each difficult experience makes him more precise, more calculated, more efficient. It's the calculated use of force, but applied to his own evolution. He no longer reacts as someone who suffers. He reacts as someone who learns, and this completely changes how the world responds to him. Because now he doesn't repeat patterns, he corrects them. But as he becomes more precise, a new challenge arises. It's no longer about external pain. It's about external influence, expectations, manipulations, invisible pressures. And if he doesn't develop something even stronger, all of this can erode what he has built. Therefore, the next step is not just learning from the pain, it's becoming immune to what tries to divert him. He begins to realize something unsettling. The world is constantly trying to influence how he thinks, feels, and acts. Opinions, expectations, judgments, subtle manipulations, all of this working like small, invisible levers. And most people don't even notice. They react automatically, try to please, adjust, mold themselves. But not him. He begins to develop something much rarer: emotional immunity. And here it's important to understand, it's not insensitivity. It's not becoming so cold as to feel nothing. It's feeling without being dominated. It's exactly the kind of posture that connects with Niccolo Machiavelli's view on decisions based on real human nature. Whoever doesn't control what they feel will be controlled by those who understand it. Simple as that. And when he internalizes this, he stops reacting to everything. Not every provocation deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves consideration. Not every expectation deserves to be met. Now, in practice, this completely changes his behavior. Before, a single criticism was enough to destabilize him. A negative comment, a rejection, a comparison, all of that weighed heavily. Now he observes. He analyzes the intention behind it. He silently asks, is this useful or is it noise? If it's noise, he discards it. If it's useful, he adjusts it. Without drama, without wounded ego. This is constant adaptability applied to one's own mind. A simple but powerful exercise, filtering opinions. Before taking something personally, he asks himself, does this person have real authority over what they are saying? Do they live what they preach? If not, why should this affect him? Another point, reducing exposure to toxic environments, whether physical or digital. Less content that generates comparison, fewer people who drain energy. This isn't escapism, it's strategy. Because those who want to maintain stability need to carefully choose what they allow into their own minds. And then something changes in how others perceive him. Once predictable, now stable. Once reactive, now solid. People realize they can no longer elicit the same response. And this generates respect. Silent, but real. It's the principle of better to be feared than loved, in the sense of not being easily manipulated. He doesn't seek approval, but he also doesn't generate unnecessary rejection. He maintains an appearance of virtue, but without naivete. And with that, he begins to build a different presence, a presence that doesn't depend on words, because in the end, those who don't overreact communicate more. And that's exactly what begins to develop now, the way he positions himself, expresses himself, and asserts himself, without needing to say almost anything. He begins to understand something that completely changes how he moves in the world. Power isn't in what you say, it's in what you transmit. Most people talk too much, explain too much, try to convince all the time, and without realizing it, lose strength with each unnecessary word. He, however, learns the opposite. He learns to use silence as a tool. He learns that presence isn't built with noise, but with control. And this is deeply aligned with the logic of Niccolo Machiavelli. Appearance of virtue, calculated use of force, precise reading of the environment. He doesn't need to constantly prove who he is. He lets others perceive it. And this creates something rare, tension, curiosity, respect. Because what isn't entirely predictable attracts attention, and what attracts attention with control dominates the space. Now, observe this in practice. In a conversation, while most people rush to speak, he listens. He observes expressions, pauses, inconsistencies. He doesn't respond immediately. He creates space. And when he speaks, he's direct, without excess, without beating around the bush. This completely changes the dynamic. Another example, posture. He doesn't need to assert himself verbally when his body language already communicates firmness. Aligned shoulders, stable gaze, controlled movements. It seems like a detail, but it's not. The body speaks before the mouth, and whoever understands this uses it. A simple exercise. Reduce the number of words you would normally use by 30%. Speak less, but with more intention. Another, maintain firm eye contact without aggression. This alone already alters how people react, and little by little, he realizes that he doesn't need to chase validation. It begins to come naturally as a consequence of his presence. And then comes the most strategic point of all, unpredictability. He doesn't always react the same way. He doesn't give himself over emotionally. He doesn't expose everything he thinks. This creates a layer of protection and power, because whoever cannot be easily read cannot be easily manipulated. It's like building your own loyal armies, but in the field of perception. He controls what he shows, when he shows it, and how he shows it. And this makes his presence armed, not in an aggressive sense, but in a strategic sense, prepared, calculated. And, as this develops, something even more solid begins to form. It's no longer about behavior nor about external perception. It's about an internal state, a level of control so refined that, even in chaos, he remains stable. And that's exactly where the unwavering mind is born. He is no longer the same, not because the world has changed, but because he has changed the way he responds to the world. And that is the high point of this process, an unwavering mind. It's not the absence of problems, it's not a perfect life, it's not absolute emotional shielding. It's stability amidst chaos. It's clarity where there was once confusion. It's control where there was once reaction. And this reflects exactly the essence of Niccolò Machiavelli's ideas: decisions based on real human nature, constant adaptability, calculated use of force. He no longer expects life to be fair, he understands the game. And understanding the game, he ceases to be a piece and becomes a player. What once shook him is now just scenery. What once paralyzed him is now just information. And this silent change is what differentiates an ordinary person from someone strategically prepared. In practice, this manifests itself almost invisibly. A crisis arises, he doesn't panic. Pressure emerges, he doesn't lose focus. A loss occurs, he doesn't fall apart. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he doesn't get lost in what he feels. He has learned to observe before reacting, to analyze before acting. This is the result of everything that came before: pain management, emotional discipline, detachment, strategic isolation, precision, immunity. Everything connects here. And with this, he begins to make decisions based on what really matters, not on impulse, not on pressure, but on reality. A simple example: while many despair in the face of financial instability, he coldly assesses, cuts excesses, reorganizes priorities, seeks new sources strategically. There is no drama, there is action, because he understands that the end justifies the means when the goal is to survive and evolve intelligently. And then comes the deepest point of all. He no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. He no longer needs to chase recognition, nor explain himself all the time. There is a different kind of peace now, not the peace of comfort, but the peace of control. He has become someone difficult to shake, difficult to manipulate, difficult to predict. And this creates a presence that speaks before any word, a presence that carries respect, even in silence. He has learned to avoid being hated, but he also doesn't depend on being loved. He plays the game without getting lost in it. And deep down, he knows that this is not an end. It's a state that needs to be maintained, because one slip-up is all it takes, and everything can start to slip away again. And that's exactly why few remain at this level. Because getting here requires strength, but staying here requires constant awareness. Now let me ask you a direct question. How many times has life put you under pressure, and you reacted automatically? How many decisions have you made on impulse? How many times have you sabotaged yourself? How many times have you relinquished control of your own life just to alleviate the discomfort of the moment? Most people will watch this, agree, and continue as before, because change requires something few are willing to pay for: real discipline. But you didn't get here by chance. You've seen what most people never see, that the problem isn't life. It's how you respond to it. So now the responsibility shifts. It's no longer about understanding, it's about applying. You're going to keep numbing the pain. Or are you going to start using it as a tool? It will continue to react emotionally, or will you take control of your decisions? He will remain trapped in outdated narratives, or will it rewrite who you truly are? Because, in the end, nobody's going to do it for you. And here is the most important point. You don't need any more motivation. You need silent, repeated, consistent action. It starts small, but it starts serious. Control a reaction today. Avoid a distraction tomorrow. Analyze a mistake objectively and objectively. This is how you build something that no one can take away from you. Now tell me, are you willing to become someone who is difficult to break, or will he continue to be someone easy to control? If this video really affected you, if any part bothered you, it's because you know you need to change. So do the following. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because you won't find comfort here. You will find clarity, and clarity changes everything.